Hello team, welcome back to another Line War cast. Here's your map today. Just real quick, you can get an idea of what we're working with. Two players are Juseless, who is in blue. We can see that they're picking the left side of the map here, and Hawk, who is in red. Not quite sure where they're going to go right on the right side of this no pick zone. The red in the middle was both players tried to pick these territories, and since both players tried to pick it, they're not allowed to go there. They have to choose different spots. Hawk going for 3 factories and 2 barracks immediately, and it's mirroring exactly what Juseless has done. You can see Hawk's view here, so they know that Juseless is close, and likewise, Juseless will be able to see Hawk's units in the fog of war. Juseless is going for 2 backcapping squads. So this is a lot of open area for Juiceless. So if Juiceless over time can cap all of that, it'll be pretty decent eco for them. Hawk isn't really investing in back capping necessarily, but they are kind of pushing forward and taking all of this land. 3 artillery pieces from Hawk. We can see what Juiceless is building out of the factory is the exact same thing. So right now it's the same opener. I don't know if these two players have played each other before, and maybe there's history. I don't know the context, but we can see if either player continues with artillery. So Hawk is going to be the first one to make tanks. Bottom 2 factories making tanks. Tanks' strength are usually when they just dip around the enemy's forces and get on top of production. They're relatively fast and they're great at killing buildings. Juiceless with a numbers advantage in the north, we can see that Hawk is retreating, and this is the right move. There's too many infantry units of Juiceless to contest this. One of the big questions here is gonna be what these tanks can do. Juiceless is not making tanks themselves. I don't mind that. I don't generally make tanks myself, but I'm also not nearly as high on the leaderboard as both these players. So, keep that in mind. I think if Juiceless can get a bunch of artillery, this could be a very scary push. But because both players actually have 3 factory, it might not be too bad for Hawk, especially if Hawk can distract a bunch of these units of Juiceless by using these tanks. Because one of the best things about tanks and commandos is if you start running them around, your opponent has to respect that and allocate some of their forces to at least position themselves to not get super owned by the tanks and the commandos if they, leave production. So we can see the move command from Hawk. It's going to go right through the middle, and something to note is that tanks move very, very slowly through forest and especially mountain. All units do. We can see on this tooltip that 30% speed penalty through uncontrolled forest territory and 50% speed penalty through uncontrolled mountain. So these tanks really actually want to kind of make sure they go through the open field. Going through a little bit of mountain might be fine, but it'll give Juiceless more time to respond. It's a huge artillery battle in the middle. Of course, Juiceless now sees these tanks, so they're going to reroute some units down to the south to kind of block them off. Tanks do kind of okay against artillery, but with this many, your guess is as good as mine on the trade. Because all these 3 artillery pieces have been able to attack this tank. So in a 3v1 situation, the tank will get 1. I think that second artillery piece was also helped out by these infantry. But maybe this is just a cleanup. And now with these 4 artillery pieces going down, this tank didn't even die, which is unfortunate for Juiceless. Because this is looking really bad for Juiceless now. In a lot of ways. We can check the economy. It's 344 for Juiceless, 320 for Hawk. These 2 squads in the back are still doing great work for Juiceless to get more economy. And it's going to be this weird little battle of, can Juiceless stop these tanks from getting on top of production while also holding this push? So 3 tanks in total from Hawk, and now the factories are going back to artillery production. Which I think is the right call. Like, getting a bunch of tanks is a little bit difficult, especially since Hawk doesn't have a gas down yet. So they have 9 gas left. We can see see just how much gas is being used when 1 tank is moving. So the gas is likely the next thing that Hawk needs to get. Otherwise, this investment of tanks is going to be stalled out for a little bit. Juseless doesn't have a gas themselves, still going hard on artillery. I like that. These infantry should be able to body block these tanks if they decide to go through the mountains. I'm just really looking with a confused look on my face because I think maybe there's a window there for these tanks to get by, but it's going to be very difficult because the tanks, as we see, they're not going to move quickly through the mountains. And I think Juseless has done a great job to block off these tanks from getting on top of the production. So we're about to have a little bit of a swing potentially in the momentum because there's only 5 artillery pieces for Hawk and there's 8, 9, 10, 11 for Juseless. So Juseless definitely has the artillery advantage right now. So they could, if enough of a blob shows up and these artillery all fight as one, this is going to be a pretty good push for Juseless. Juseless dropping another factory in the back. I like this play. I don't know where Hawk's going to go from this point. The tanks are all gone, so the gas doesn't become an immediate priority. We can look at both players' money. 416 income for Juseless and 356 for Hawk. So Hawk is almost in a problem scenario, I think, watching this. Like, this is a lot of artillery, and there's a very decent front for Juseless. Like, all these artillery are firing. I like the retreat move from Hawk to try to get the artillery or the infantry on top of these artillery of Juseless. It's not going to work at this point just because of the amount of units that Juseless has. And one of the big things in line war, it feels, is when you get closer to your opponent. I mean, this is true of most RTS, right? But as you get closer to your opponent, their reinforcements will arrive way quicker than your reinforcements do. This 4th factory for Juseless will, over time, really push the numbers game in their favor. 4 factories worth of production versus 3 factories worth of production, you can think, like, over time, that is actually going to be a rather large amount, right? Like that extra artillery piece or SAM or tank, I mean, that adds up over time. And Hawk realizes that this is now a little bit of a lost cause. We can see Hawk notices that there's a 4th factory, so how Hawk responds to this is going to be the question. Obviously, but this push for Juseless is still really good. This still has a ton of potential, and we can see what Juseless is thinking, and I like this, that they're just going to group up a bunch of blobs and then probably push when they can. Airport for Hawk, this is in a very bold position. Super, super close. The range of this airport is the entire base of Juseless, clearly, no matter what type of plane is built from here, helicopters or strikers. This one artillery piece is going to sneak attack this infantry. A barracks in the back for Juseless, that will help in the back capping, as we can kind of see. There's a lot of land, there's a city, there's in fact a trade route. So that economic development in the back for Juseless is a great setup for them. And I think in general, if Juseless can hold here, then Juseless will be in a great position. 476 income for Juseless, 380 for Hawk. I also assume I'm saying Juseless's name correctly, and I apologize to them if I'm not. J Useless maybe? No idea. This is one of the things about artillery that's interesting about a point command, and I do this too when I play, is point commands aren't necessarily ideal for artillery just because then the ones in the back might not start firing, because we see like Hawk has pushed up in a line. So this immediate first engagement is going to go so much better for Hawk. And Infenzia noted this on the Line War Twitch channel the other day when casting the Q2 2022 finals, was there's an art to how you group and move your artillery. And if you can get all of them firing at the same time, it's such an enormous damage output. Like, as we can see here in the middle, like this kind of collapse of Juseless's artillery line because of the setup that Hawk started with. Over time, I still think that there's enough production from Juseless that they're going to be able to at least hold here. It's a question of if this helicopter support, it is helicopters out of the airport for Hawk. If that can get up and there's no SAMs for Juseless, which Juseless isn't making any SAMs right now, then that could be a very strong play. These 5 artillery pieces in the top of this fight are going to be able to collapse on this northern part of Hawk's artillery line. And as always, income check is important. Juseless at 546 and Hawk at 404. So really still, Hawk is now starting to back cap a little bit with these 2 barracks, but Juseless is way ahead in that regard. And we can see here that Juseless will eventually clean this up and hold. I think, yeah, this is going to be definitely a retreat command for Hawk. These helicopters are really the only you know, tactical advantage that Hawk has at this point, potentially. They definitely need to get a gas. And this 1 infantry is just hero moding it all the way back here, and that's not going to end well for them. I think this is looking really good for Juseless. So Hawk is now putting down their first gas. This is a race against time now to see if this gas can get up and if these helicopters can do enough to defend and hopefully push back Juseless's artillery. And with only 3 gas, this helicopter can't be launched for Hawk. Juseless might see this. So there's a gap in the forest. I don't actually know if Juseless saw this in game, that this is a tell that there's an airport here. Not really sure. So it's potential, because I'll expect SAMs if Juseless did see this. But Juseless isn't making SAMs yet out of any of the factories, which is fine. So presumably they didn't actually see this airport. Their income is going to look really good though. Like 616 for Juseless and 452 for Hawk, which at this point in the game is a relatively large income advantage for Juseless. The problem they're going to face is this helicopter is about to be able to start launching, and there's nothing that's going to be able to mess with the helicopter. Small arms fire from the infantry that is running into artillery, so that's not going to be a big deal for the helicopter, and the second helicopter is almost on the way. Now Juseless definitely sees this airport, and we'll see if they start building any SAMs. This is quite the battle, and this looks relatively even, especially with these helicopters now. You can watch in the north what these helicopters can do when they're not contested at all by SAMs or, you know, interceptors. Airport for Juseless, this is a great call, and 2 SAMs, 3 SAMs in fact. And I really like this because Juseless is not gonna, like, there's 2 helicopters on the field already. There's definitely gonna be at least a 3rd plane, helicopter or otherwise, that's gonna pop relatively quickly, as in like by the time these SAMs are all done. And so all of these artillery are, if there's no SAMs, they're super dead over time. I mean, they're already super dead because this is a great fight from Hawk. And I don't actually really know what Juseless can do. At this point with an economy lead, they have 700 monies, and Hawk has only 452 monies. So that's a lot of difference in monies. And so if Juseless can hold this, they should, in theory, be in a very strong spot. Keep in mind that as time goes on, Hawk is also going to be able to start catching up a little bit. There's a decent amount of land on the backside for Hawk. They have a city in the bottom here, and they have a city up in the north. But Juseless does have that trade route in the back. Cities are worth 10 tiles worth of territory, and so are trade routes. Here come these ever important SAMs. The helicopters have to back off, so this now becomes a better fight for Juseless, although they're still outnumbered in artillery on the front, so they're not going to trade all that favorably right now. Hawk is building a 4th factory so that they've matched the amount of output of Juseless, and this looks pretty decent for Hawk in a lot of ways. If Hawk can control the tempo here, get an economy of their own, they might be in a decent spot. I like this 5th factory from Juseless though, because with a better economy, Juseless in theory can stay a little bit ahead in the production facilities that they build. And as we see, there's another factory going down for them. Or a barracks. Still learning the nuance to what the buildings look like. We can take a big picture look at the rest of the map to see if there's any development. 2 industries for Juseless down here, which potentially set up that bottom city, which would be a huge boost to Juseless's economy. These SAMs aren't going to be able to move through the mountains all that quickly. One of the nice things about moving SAMs in mountains is that they get a little bit of a stealth bonus. We'll see if this comes into play right now. I think Hawk has enough units around that these SAMs are going to always be revealed. But if you can group up the SAM, yeah, we can see that they're kind of disappearing from view for split seconds. So if they can get in the mountains, the helicopters can sometimes fly over them and not see them until the last second and then get super shot out of the sky. Kind of a little bit of a reset right now. It's going to depend if Hawk wants to keep pushing or start to econ themselves and maybe take it easy a bit. Hawk has 524 income and Juseless has 820, so this is actually rolling a little bit away from Hawk, so maybe Hawk wants to get a bit aggressive. But of course the risk you run by just going aggressive again is that if you take a bad trade, because you have less income than your opponent, you're going to be in a very dangerous position after, right? I like this SAM positioning, splitting some of them in the mountains and getting the other on this side. I think in general this is a really good play to have, both of your flanks kind of protected by the SAMs so they can maneuver them around. So that even if the helicopters go to the north, you have a few, and if they go to the south, you obviously have a few that'll be able to, at the very least, trade very well against the helicopters. Because Hawk isn't yet at the point where there's a critical mass of helis. Like, if you have enough helicopters, it doesn't matter if your opponent has like 2 or 3 SAMs, because the helicopters are going to be able to wipe those SAMs very quickly with, I believe these are technically called their Hellfire missiles. Strikers out of the airport for Juseless. I like this. Juseless knows that everything here is within range of the strikers, and I don't think Juseless has seen that Hawk has a few SAMs. There's only 3 though, so if they can kind of maneuver these strikers around, maybe taking a circular route around them, they'll be they'll be able to get great trades, or maybe even just targeting this gas. Because you have 2 options when your opponent has air, or like helicopters like this, is you can kill them with your SAMs, or if you can take out the gas, they aren't able to move. And so we're going to see what Juseless' plan is, and this is exactly it. So this looping idea to make sure that they get around wherever these SAMs could potentially be, because unless Hawk like mind read this and put these SAMs in this forest, this will be a huge play from Juseless. With only 2 strikers, I don't think they're going to be able to get any of these buildings. Maybe 1, but I doubt it. These SAMs will likely move from Hawk once they see that these strikers are over here. And yes, of course, here we go. The SAMs are on their way. Not yet sprinting down. And maybe the play isn't to sprint, because you could haste move these SAMs, but when you haste move the SAMs, they do lose a little bit of their HP over time, so maybe the plan is just make sure they have full health to deal with these strikers. This is a good push by Juseless on the south. I really like this because they have a good numbers advantage in the north, and now that they've pulled these SAMs out of position, these strikers can actually just go up the gut or go up to the north of this. I'm going to be interested to see where Juseless decides to go next. We can check what Juseless' development is. They have this town, and the last industry. So that sets up that city nicely. And they have both the towns required to build the ports for that trade route in the back. And that'll just blast off their economy. And so I think this is the beginning of the end for Hawk. Because we can check what the economy is. 632 for Hawk and 926 for Juseless. And we can see the lines, what both players are kind of deciding to do, what their game plan is. This is one of the cool things about Line War, is you just legitimately look at the lines and you already know what the player has in their head. These helicopters, they're great, but of course when they run into SAMs like this, I mean, this one got lucky. That one needs to buy a lottery ticket because these SAMs weren't able to get rid of it. But there's a good SAM spread and good SAM coverage from Juseless. They might not even need to keep making SAMs, but we know and understand that artillery SAM is a little bit of a convergent composition in this meta, so it's never bad to have more artillery in SAM. Yeah, and these strikers have gone to the north, and they gotta just take so much. Like, these are good trades for them. One SAM is not going to be able to kill any of the strikers, I don't think. Income-wise, 950 for Juseless, 668 for Hawk. I'm interested to see if Hawk is... Hawk's nearly got to the north of the map. Like, they might almost have all the territory. The problem is that Juseless has actually started on the economic development, as we can see here. They're setting up this trade route. They actually have a dock to make sure that they're able to keep the water, potentially even send things over. I'm interested to see. Yeah, so they're going to try to land here and then get the north, and that's a great call. Because the north is, besides this one city in the south, this is Hawk's economy. Is that northern town, that northern city. Hawk's building another factory. I think at this point, Hawk kind of has to do this. They've been forced into it because they're slowly losing this battle. There's 6 different factories for Juseless, and this will be the 5th factory for Hawk. So that's, production-wise, quite a bit, you know, quite a big difference. This barracks of Hawk got taken out. The gas is still alive, but because there's so many SAMs, it's hard to make use of these helicopters. Like, the only real place the helicopters can get value at this point is these infantry on the bottom. Can't really even thread the needle to get on top of production between these two SAM groups because this SAM positioning from Juseless is, I think, about as perfect as you'd want it to be. A lot of ways. Another factory for Hawk, although I think it'll be a little bit too late. With 4 strikers against 2 SAMs, one of which that is damaged, the strikers might be able to take out at least one of these SAMs, and I don't think they're going to lose any of, like, any planes. Juseless isn't going to lose planes here. Yeah. The 4 strikers might actually even take out 2 SAMs. With this helicopter's help, 1 striker goes down. But the gas is dead. That'll get rid of all the helicopters for Hawk. If these 2 factories in the north for Hawk got online, like, legitimately now and started pumping units, maybe they'd be able to hold, but this is quite a artillery advantage for Juseless. Yeah, very well played. Interesting game. 2 ports from Juseless, so once that trade route got up and running, it's going to give such a huge economic boost. We can kind of see Hawk at 740 and Juseless sitting on a pile of cash at 1100. And I don't think anyone in the world could come back from this. I bet you I could throw as Juseless right now if I was in their position, but that's me. I'm not Juseless. Juseless is going to close this game out. This was a game from the Q2 2022 tournament that I don't know what round or whatever. I'm just picking replays. It's not important, you know. Line more games, line more games. But if you want the details on the Q2 2022 tournament or to check out some of the replays yourself, feel free to join the Line War Discord. This is definitely super over, so I'll just say it now. I stream Line War on Twitch, other folks do too. If you want to go over to the Twitch and follow the category and come say hello, please do. As mentioned, the Line War Discord is also a great place to ask people about the game and just hang out. Yeah, thanks for watching. GG to both players, and thanks to, I think Infenzia posted all the replays from the tournament in the channel, so thank you to Basantos and Infenzia for setting this up. And yeah, we'll see you around. Thank you again. Have a great night, evening, day, whatever it is for you. See ya. Peace.